Good morning and welcome back to the Dogs and Deadlifts podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Rose, and all the way from Canada today, we have special guest Evan Birch. Welcome, Evan.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Daniel. I'm excited to have a conversation about all the things.
Yeah, look, we've been discussing on and off for quite a few months now to be able to line up our schedules, but I'm really excited and I really appreciate you finding the time, especially at short notice today, to jump on and tell us about your story and and obviously Nova's story. And there's heaps happening in your world, and it's super excited. I'm excited for you.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
All right, so let's look. First of all, let's get started. If in well, in regards to your background and who you are, and obviously we'll let the conversation flow. But would you like to share with the listeners today a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so typically the what do you do thing is always a tough one for me. I've
Yeah,
kind of gotten a little bit away from that, but I know it's nice to have a little bit of a backstory. So
yeah.
I've been in emergency services for the better part of 2 decades,
Mm-hmm.
as an air ambulance dispatcher, as well as leader within the centers as well, working for air ambulance, ground EMS, and fire.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've also been a runner for about the same amount of time. I would consider myself a trail runner for the last 20 years,
Mm-hmm.
but really getting into the longer distances kind of over the last 8 years,
Mm-hmm.
alongside Nova, who is my 8-year-old Hungarian Vizsla.
Mm-hmm.
And she probably puts in equal amount of mileage that I do. There's very odd days that she doesn't go with me,
Mm-hmm.
but that's, I guess, me in a very small nutshell there.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. I guess I was first, made aware of you through the short film would you I call it a short film movie. What do whatever
Mhm.
you class it as?
Yeah, short documentary. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Let's. How did that come about?
I think we've been in training to do something like this for a very long time, not even really knowing it.
Yep.
All Nova's ran probably over 20, 50K distances in
Mm-hmm.
her kind of from age like 2 till age 8,
Mm-hmm.
in that time frame. So
Mm-hmm.
it kind of came about. I was contacted by a filmmaker who ended up being one of the filmmakers on this film. The name of the film is SuperNova, the 100-Mile Dog.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who haven't seen it, it's on YouTube. It's under my YouTube channel. And yeah, we had a conversation. He just said, I'd see what other things you're doing within the mental health space and all that other world. And he's like, I really want to work together and do something.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had this idea boiling, running around my mind for a very long time about doing a race with her. And I stumbled across Orcas Island 100, which is part of the Rain Shadow Running Company's races out in Washington in the US. And they allow dogs at many of their races. There's very few ultras that will actually allow dogs. And
Mm-hmm.
there's actually very few ultras that I would consider at a 100-mile distance putting my dog into, just purely the terrain, the temperature, the lack of access for aid stations. All of these factors really come into play to make that decision. And I mentioned it to the filmmaker, and he's a dog person as well too. And he brought his friend on. So Lucas Collin is the filmmaker alongside Tommy DeWitt,
Mm-hmm.
and he brought Tommy on board. And yeah, we were just able to tell like beautiful story. I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
ruin the documentary for those that haven't seen it, but I encourage everybody to take a look because it's even those that may not even run with their dogs. I think it touches everything.
Yeah, 100%. And I will obviously ensure that I link it in our show notes and share it when once the podcast goes live, etc. But just dialing it back a little bit, and like I personally have contacted a number of organizations here in Australia and said, hey, can not necessarily for ultras, but even just a 10 to 25 kilometer trail run. And we're so restricted here in regards to, obviously, dogs are not allowed in national parks, or the organizer does not allow dogs, right? So it's super hard here in Australia, particularly for us to find a location and an event that we can take our dogs to, right?
Mhm.
And I recall emailing, I've emailed dozens of, trail directly event organizers to see if it was possible. And all I go back, multiple no, no, nose, 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 nose.
Hmm.
So then we've seen an emergence of, I guess, Canny Cross type events, and generally here they're 5 kilometers maximum, but they're very hard to come across as well. Do you have the same sort of issue in Canada around that, or?
It's very hit and miss. So there's a lot of organizations that I
Mm-hmm.
know of that just don't allow dogs at all. There's a
Mm-hmm.
there's a few in the States. I know Vizsla is a large running organization down in the States. I know they don't allow dogs at any of their events.
Yep.
Because one of my athletes was wanting to run with one of their dogs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an ultra running coach as well too. So,
Mm-hmm.
and they later found out that their race got bought out by Vizsla, so they had to back out of the race because they now can't run with their dog, even though that race allowed dogs before. So
Yep.
I think insurance is a big thing with it.
Yep.
And that's why Candy Cross events are great because everybody has a dog. So
Yep.
it's not like running through, a race where only one person has a dog. And I will tell you, like,
Mm-hmm.
the number of people that like lit up with a smile on their face when they saw me running with my dog for that distance was just
Yep.
like every aid station, like nobody cared about me. I was not even like they would just yell her name out and cheer her in, and
Mm-hmm.
it was all about her. And I think that was the unique thing about it is like I got to support her in doing this, and that's the way that I look at it. Is it was her 100-mile race. Yes, she
Mm-hmm.
didn't choose to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I knew she was capable, and I was just kind of her guide
Yeah.
along the way.
Yeah, awesome. So let's on that, let's sort of segue a little bit and talk about not just yours but hers. Obviously we're at Dogs and Deadlifts. We love our dogs here. Around the three elements that I look at are obviously starts with nutrition,
Mhm.
and correct me if you have a different idea, but it starts with nutrition. We look at the training plan, then we look at recovery as well. Not just for us, but for the dogs. And we spoke a little bit earlier before we hit record around nasal breathing and stuff. And I'm really super passionate, and I'm trying to figure out nasal breathing techniques for dogs running with balls and tugs in their mouth and things like that. So but I'm getting a little bit off track a little bit, but
Mhm.
let's go back to not just necessarily your training plan, but how do you, I guess, prepare Nova for such a large race, both nutritionally, training, and also recovery?
Yeah. There's, like you said, three very big things there,
Yeah.
just
Mm-hmm.
to do with her health.
Mm-hmm.
So let's dive into nutrition first. So Nova
Mm-hmm.
has been on a raw food diet
Mm-hmm.
ever since she was about a year old because she had a flour stomach and she just didn't do well on kibble at all.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then we ended up getting a gut probiotic that really kind of the stuff that we use is actually like, I guess the way the term they use is like soil based.
Mm-hmm.
So it actually creates a lining inside of her stomach to protect her just because she did have a very sensitive stomach, but she eats a pound of turkey and beef mixture
Mm-hmm.
once a day.
Yep.
And that was really her nutrition. Like she
Mm-hmm.
has yams, she doesn't eat table food, fresh water all the time. Like there wasn't anything really out of the box, I would say, that we have done for her over the last kind of 6 years with
Yep.
her really kind of ramping up her training.
Yep.
I don't know what you typically
Mm-hmm.
use from a nutrition perspective, Daniel, but
Yeah, yeah. So I'm a huge advocate for raw, fresh food. I've interviewed a number of people on the podcast around that. Certainly, did you find that she was dropping any weight, and or did you have to adjust that when you started doing the additional kilometers? I know that you mentioned that she's been doing quite a lot of running. Most of her life, I would say,
Mhm.
but certainly, our biggest concern, or what I generally see, is that the obviously the output increases, and we just see some dogs in particular really shred and drop that weight.
Yeah, you
Mm,
know what? She's very steady. If
mm.
anything, she actually gained weight from
Okay.
when we switched her over to raw food. And then she does
Yep.
get a frozen herring every couple, 2 or 3 days as well, too, just from the
Yep.
fish oil perspective.
Yep.
And then she loves her yams, her dehydrated yams.
Yep.
And then we've actually just moved to like for treats, we've moved to a just a dehydrated raw food, just the
Mm-hmm.
small turkey bites
Yep.
that she does really well with. And I think because turkey is such a lean meat to begin
Mm-hmm.
with,
Mm-hmm.
I think that helps her as well too. But yeah, no, she's been pretty steady with her weight, even as I kind of move the mileage here and there. But like I'm
Mm-hmm.
a very low mileage runner myself when it comes to these ultra distances. I'm only running 4 to 5 days a week myself.
Okay.
And I, if I could recover the way that she recovers,
Yep. Yep.
like dogs know how to recover extremely well. That is all I will say.
Yep.
Perfect example being after finishing that, attempting that 100-mile race,
Mm-hmm.
she slept for 2 days basically in the car on the way home. And the next day on the Monday,
Yep.
she was ripping around the basement playing tug with her toys again.
Yeah.
Like, and most people are just like broken for a week after doing these
Yes.
distances. So like her recovery is just incredible just to see how fast she's able to do it. And
Yep.
we don't really, I obviously don't plan any big runs or anything like that. And
Yep.
we do prioritize that as well too. She's not doing two big long run days in a row normally.
Yep.
Um, and the way that I look at it as well too is we were training to do that distance once,
Mm-hmm.
just like I'm doing my own training. I
Yep.
don't need to run 75 to 100 miles before I actually go out and do it. I need to
Mm-hmm.
show my body that it's capable.
Yep.
And that's just what we did with Nova. Same thing. She basically ran my training schedule.
Mm, yeah, awesome. So you mentioned that she is 8 years old. Or did you look at? There's no additional supplements for joints, hips, or anything like that. You didn't not required.
Yeah, we haven't gone to any additional
Mm,
supplements. She hasn't been
mm,
showing any sort of, standing up and being stiff or sore
mm.
or anything after anything
Yeah.
yet. So maybe that's a combination of, the fish every 2 or 3 days and other things that she's getting it naturally.
Yep.
But we haven't gone to any supplements yet. I've had a couple people in the veterinary world who reached out after watching the film and they just said,
Mm.
hey, she's 8, you should consider it now. Um, we're still considering it. Let's just
Yeah,
say that.
they're not a problem at all. That's just,
Yeah.
something that, ate. So, I had last month I lost my 9-year-old German Shorthaired Pointer, and
Mm.
he, I started him on some additional supplements, but he's like a freight train. He's yeah, he didn't really require it. It's just something that I guess as I thought about, but certainly
Hmm.
I agree with you. If it's coming naturally through a fish, a fish, and that's what we talked about earlier, a natural raw and fresh food diet. Well, we don't need to, generally to top up on those supplements unless there's something deficient there, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
completely agree.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. So that's awesome. And then moving into your training plan, would you like to, I guess 100 miles is a fair distance. You've already sort of touched on it a little bit in regards to, how you like to plan your week. But did you want to just give us a bit more of an in-depth sort of overview? Do you go from Monday to Sunday? Do you do 4-week blocks? How do you look at, did you prepare for that?
Yeah. So I like to call it, have you heard of the term periodization?
Yes. Yep.
So that's kind of how I look at it. I look at here's the race, here's
Yep.
how much time we train,
Hmm.
looking at usually like a 6 month block.
Hmm.
And then I break it down into smaller blocks of 6 weeks at a time. And then you'll have a
Hmm.
down week every 6 weeks.
Yep.
So really each week itself was about resting on Mondays.
Hmm.
Tuesday would be a nasal breathing anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half, just super easy.
Hmm.
Maybe a couple strides at the end of it.
Hmm.
Wednesdays were usually hill repeats. So, have 1 kilometer uphill,
Hmm.
jog back down, 1 kilometer uphill, jog back down. And then
Yep.
as the weeks progress, you start adding more repeats into it.
Hmm.
And then Thursday is basically a repeat of Tuesday.
Hmm.
Friday is typically the day off. Saturday is like a big long run day where that's where we're putting in our, we might start at, let's say, a 30 kilometer in our like week one, and
Hmm.
then we'll just add kilometers every single week as we lead up to kind of our peak weeks before the race.
Yep.
And then Sunday was always a half marathon nasal breathing. That's as fast as you're allowed to run, is as fast as you can nasal breathe.
Hmm.
And for some people, that's much lower than what they would expect. And some people who've, like myself, I've been training in it for the last number of years.
Yep.
I can do a pretty fast nasal breathing run now, which I have to kind of back off a little bit now. But that's typically the week. I mean, we were averaging somewhere at the low end 70 kilometers a week, at the high end about 115, 120 kilometers,
Hmm.
which is still on the kind of, I would say, low end of the mileage when it comes to a lot of people who are, I'll say, competing in 100-mile events and being very competitive.
Hmm. Yeah, awesome. And so just for the listeners out there, Nova's she's with you doing all this with you at the same time. Is that correct?
Absolutely. There's the odd one depending on if I know it's going to be really hot or we don't have access to water.
Hmm.
But I would say 95% of my runs outside are with Nova. I've been last year before the event, I actually reached out to a couple slat mill companies
Hmm.
just to see if they would be willing to sponsor us to get a slat mill for Nova.
Yep.
Haven't been able to break through on one of those yet, but I'm
So
working on it.
look, hard to do, So I'm certainly a huge fan of of slat mills, and I do seminars and I talk about the difference between slat mills and mechanically treadmills. And
Hmm.
there's pros and cons for each, without getting into a 2 hour long lecture around them. Certainly I have a slat mill. The quality varies, the price varies, and
Hmm.
I believe you can do much more on a slat mill. However, for long tempo based training programs, so the dog, for instance, might be in a trot for a long period of time. I do actually prefer a power or motorized treadmill. I interviewed on previous episodes a company in Europe called Dog Runner. Really, really great guys. But you can dial in the speed. They don't they have obviously a max speed, but it's for those long uh, I guess trotting runs, where
Yeah,
more
like
more.
mine.
Yep, 100%. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I do like the dog runner treadmill. Yeah, there's others out there like dog paces and stuff like that, but I certainly am a huge fan of the dog runner treadmill. And they're based in Europe. They do have a couple of fantastic they've got places in the US, where I'm not sure about Canada, but in the
Mhm.
US they certainly have a distributor, and I'm more than happy to share details and things like that as well. Joe's a great guy in America, but yeah, so the slap mill I use, obviously depending on the dog, takes a little bit more time for them to get used to, but yeah, they can trot, but they can also have those intervals, and that we can get up to 30-40 kilometers an hour through the sprints, but also making sure that the dog comes back down. But yeah, it's a little, some dogs that just don't are not comfortable on them, and I'll be honest with people. I'm like, hey, we can work at this, but your dog may just walk slash light trot on it. But
Hmm. Yeah.
overall, it does have a little bit more versatility, especially if you want to include those high intensity intervals, for
Yeah.
sure, for
Especially
sure.
living in Canada, the
Mm.
reason why I want something like that is
Mm.
I know myself, I'm not going out in less than minus 20 degrees Celsius. It's just it's not fun for me anymore. I used to do it
Yep.
when I first started early on in running, but
Yep.
there's less benefit to me, and I know I can push
Mm.
through that if I have to in a race.
Yeah.
But there's no point in like throwing myself into it now when I know that like I can handle it. It's
Hmm.
for people who to go in those conditions who may not know if they can handle it.
Yep.
But especially for the dog, I mean, just
Mm.
paw care in general, it's yeah,
Yeah.
there's a big piece of that comes into it for me for especially over the winter.
Yeah, for sure. And and just to sort of to finalize on that, the scope of slap meals is huge these days. Like there's some I've seen some really, really, well, let's just say dodgy mills,
Hmm.
and I've seen some really, really high end mills. And if you look at a brand in the US again, like Dog Trotter, etc., that
Hmm.
they're $10,000. That's a lot of coin for a slap mill, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely beautiful, but it's a lot of money. I recently had, and I did a podcast as well, had a guy over from New Zealand, elite slap mills, and he made mine. He brought it over. Then we did some collaboration around the slap mills, just educations and workshops. We had some government departments interested, etc., and not just buying them, but also understanding how to use them correctly as well, because
Hmm.
we have seen a huge increase in interest, but there's not really the education around it. And as you're aware, it's like someone that is, 300 pounds wants to go and lift weights or do CrossFit and then also do a 100-mile race within a week. Number one, they're dreaming, right? Number two, more likely they're going to do an injury.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm certainly seeing that the lack of education around the slap mill. So I've got a slap mill certification that I've been working on for quite some time. I haven't quite hit go in regards to the educational content there, but certainly it's in the works. But they definitely have their benefits, as you mentioned, when it's minus. I'm not sure I'm going to go run in the snow.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. You definitely. I have all the. There's no such thing as bad weather. It's bad gear, and I have everything I need. She has everything she needs.
Yep.
I mean, even to just like maybe just quickly touch on the gear side of things.
Yeah.
Nonstop Dogwear has been a huge supporter.
Mm-hmm.
When we brought this to them and this idea that we were going to do,
Mm-hmm.
they didn't even think twice about, stepping up. Every single person that I've worked with, spoken with at Nonstop has been nothing but supportive, and they just love getting people out there. And obviously, our story is unique. We're kind of
Mm-hmm.
like Candy Cross on steroids with the
Mm-hmm.
distances that we run.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, everything from their jackets to their boots to their harnesses to everything is just, top quality. And we haven't found anything better.
Yeah, look, I 100%. That's just so the audience know, I obviously know that you guys had an alignment with Nonstop. They've been super supportive to me as well. So this is certainly not a paid advertisement, but
Hmm.
if you look back on a number of episodes, I had Nonstop on the podcast, and we talked about some new products that they launched, their new military working dog products. I'm a huge fan of the new. So I'm not sure if you've seen it, like the drag or the weight pulling harness that they've got. So
Hmm.
part of the my programming is for strength endurance, for instance, is that so it's a free motion harness and that has an attachment of what Nonstop call it a puller attachment. So it's an extra meter of fabric. It has a spreader bar at the back, so therefore the weight is evenly distributed, and then depending on the dog and the program, I calculate out percentage of body weight for the dog to generally walk. We don't run, walk, pulling this extra weight. So we're building a couple of different things, not just strength. We're building some endurance as well. So I love that Nonstop has brought out that for people to get into straight away, because previously it was a custom made harness that people would wait 3, 6 months to get because the custom harness makers were so busy.
Hmm.
But certainly that's what we talked about primarily on my podcast, and the programming that I do around introductions, and also where we can get to with that with certain dogs. So yeah, it's a bit of a crossover, as I mentioned, around strength endurance, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
But yeah, they're certainly a huge supporter, and I also recommend their products as well. So we certainly align in that in that space as well. I just wanted to sort of go back a little bit and talk about if that's okay. You mentioned a couple of things that I would like to go to. The advocating for mental health. I'd love to have just a brief chat about that, and then also a little bit about the nasal breathing techniques and how the training that you've got into and created awareness around that, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So in regards to, you mentioned earlier, been in the first responder industry for quite some time. Can you tell us a little bit about how you've been helping and assisting others in that mental health space?
Yeah, so kind of my story, I'll say will go up to 2021.
Mhm.
And I ended up going through a period, very dark period for myself of not really knowing what was happening. I later took some time off work, ended up going to see my doctor and went to see a psychologist. And within a period of 3 months, I was diagnosed with PTSD, depression, and anxiety. And I was, at that point, I didn't know what was happening
Mhm.
myself. So I went through some pretty heavy therapy and counseling and a lot of, yeah, hours and hours upon hours for better part of 2 years. And kind of came, I'll say I'm on the downhill end of it now, coming off the mountain and heading down towards, that kind of post-traumatic growth side of things. And
Mhm.
I've really been a huge advocate of not only with the first responder community, but also within the trail running and endurance community through an organization called Bigger Than the Trail.
Mhm.
And what they do is they provide mental health supports to anybody that even touches endurance sports. You don't have to compete in them. It could be a family member, it could be a friend.
Mhm.
And they provide online counseling access to individuals, no questions asked. You put your email in and you can have access. There's a couple of companies that are working with BetterHelp and another one called Comrie. It's basically online psychologists anywhere in the world that they connected people with. So I've been working with them the last few years as well.
Mhm.
I've done numerous charity events where I've supported not only them, but other organizations here in Calgary as well too,
Mhm.
and really just sharing my story to be relatable to other people in a way that they can also say like, yeah, me too.
Mhm.
And I think that's the beauty, like we said before we even started talking, like I'm an open book.
Mhm.
I've released a documentary before this supernova one that I had a friend work on me with a couple of years ago, where wasn't sure if I wanted to keep running. I was running for the wrong reasons. I was running away from things and pushing things down and stuffing things away. And I had to really come to grips that year, that was 2023, of whether or not I wanted to even keep running.
Mhm.
And I've obviously come on that other side. Now I'm, coaching runners. I'm doing the breathwork facilitation, which we can touch on soon here.
Mhm. Mhm.
But that's really for me the advocacy piece of sharing my story. I've done a few speaking engagements and things like that as well too. Raised quite a few funds through some of the charity runs that I've done the last 4 years as well too.
Yeah, yeah. So, for the listeners out there, some of them know that I'm in in a government agency space as well, and certainly not just myself. I've seen a number of friends suffer and around mental health, if you like. And I went to a workshop. Must have been about maybe 2, 3 months ago now, and it was for frontliners. And the agency that I'm in, there was 200 people there. The agency or the type of industry that I'm in, there was two of us, and one of the speakers got up and he was a police officer, or ex-police officer. And what he said was, you know, I can't have PTSD. Only people that go to war get PTSD. That was his mentality around, mental health and PTSD, right? And, there was lots of veterans there, police, ambulance. There was a lot of people. But when it came down to the industry that I'm in, there was two of us, and we are just as big, in our state. There's probably 10 to 13,000 employees in this industry, right? And there was two of us out of 200 at this first responder function. And it was great. There was some lectures, and then there was some breath work, and then there was an ice bath, and there was some, yoga, and there was, it was a really good interactive day, and it was fun, but certainly some of the lectures that I sat in were hard to sit in,
Mhm.
they were certainly, but people were raw, they were honest, in front of 200 people that they never met before, right? And it's something that I'm really, passionate about, because it can not just be detrimental to yourself, but also the relationships you have with partner, family, and stuff like that as well, right? So we're in a space, and this is how I feel, that um, you know we need more awareness. We need to be able to talk about it. We need to be able to look at outlets, etc., that assist us through things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the thing that I've discovered the most out of being in the industry for as long as I have, and I'm sure your industry is very similar, the line of eventually will be fully staffed is usually the line that gets used quite a bit, and it's never fully staffed. In 20 years, we were never fully staffed, and it came to my like attention after being away from it for as long as I had that there was something broken within the system in the sense of you can have all the lectures and all the books and all the pamphlets and all the, you do this, do that. But I think the biggest thing that most people were missing were tools to use in the moment because psychologists, everybody therapy, it's great. I think, if you're being called to do it, I think you should. But sometimes it's not available in that immediate moment. And that's where the breath work for me has been paramount. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about it is it's something that is always with you. Nobody can take it from you. And you can literally do breath work without anybody seeing you do something. So it can be this like passive thing that nobody else even recognizes that you're doing. So it takes away the, I'm going to look silly doing this, or I can't show that, I'm weak, or all these other things that have been said in the past about PTSD and depression and anxiety that, that it's a weakness and all these things. So for me, that's why breath work has been such a huge part. And that's why not only did I practice it, but I also got my certification to teach it. And I think that's just a testament to how well it works for me, not only in the endurance running space, but also just from a, nervous system regulation perspective.
Yeah, for sure. And do you want to, talk a little bit about that? Excuse me. We talk about oxygen advantage. Sorry, excuse me. Do you want to talk about oxygen advantage a little bit? How you discovered either breath work or decided to choose Patrick's system? Because look in. I look through my feed in my socials, and this is what I feel every single day. There's a new organization popping up or a new certification, breathwork certification, etc. This is better. I'm better. Or I have better marketing. I have this. I come across breathwork quite some years ago, but let's talk about your journey around that if that's okay.
Yeah, so I guess it kind of two sides. So my running coach, Ray Zahab, he's a
Hmm.
very well-known ultra runner and adventurer here in Canada,
Hmm.
explorer. He's done Baffin Island crossings, Atacama Desert crossings, like 900 kilometers. He's a ridiculous adventure guy, and he's been doing it for probably 20 years
Hmm.
before it ever became a thing or popular. And he kind of put me onto a book a few years ago called The Oxygen Advantage, is how I started reading about it.
Hmm.
And he had me doing nasal breathing runs as part of my run training and my coaching. Didn't really think much of it when I first started doing it with the running, and then I started realizing how powerful it was in the day to day. And I think the difference between Oxygen Advantage and all the other programs is the Oxygen Advantage program is about not just performance, but it's also your day-to-day breathing and how you operate on a day-to-day basis. Whereas a lot of
Hmm.
breath work I find is like you show up, whether it be in meditation or whether it be used for cold plunging or all these other things, it's very quick and done.
Hmm.
And it's about upregulating your system rather than downregulating. And I don't think many people have a problem upregulating themselves with all of the distractions and all the things we have access to now. I
Hmm.
think it's actually like a not being able to down regulate your system to bring yourself to that like calm, regulated space. So that's really why the Oxygen Advantage appealed to me because that's what I was looking for in the moment was something that could like take me out of those moments where I was having, whether it be in a panic attack or any of those things that I was experiencing,
Hmm.
and to bring myself back to a state of regulation
Hmm.
using just my body.
Hmm.
No other tools other than, regulating my breathing through different exercises and different techniques that Patrick McCown has been using for years and years himself. And
Hmm.
a lot of people don't realize like breath work used to be considered this woo-woo thing that only yogis do and meditation through meditation.
Hmm.
And that's why Patrick came out with the oxygen advantages because he was finding that it was all based on Buteyko breathing,
Hmm.
and he was finding that people were thinking that it was just like I'm not going to do that. But as soon as he named it the oxygen advantage and he made it about performance,
Yep.
everybody just like almost like flipped overnight and was like, oh man, like this is about performance. Well, yeah, of course I'm going to do it because it's about performance. It's
Yep.
just like that using the English language against you
Mhm.
um, to basically like trick you into doing the breath work. And I think, yeah, I'm just a huge proponent of it. I think there's so many things that we don't even realize that breath work is beneficial for.
Mhm.
Mostly because a lot of people think it's woo or they're afraid of it.
Mm, for sure. And look, there's a little bit of in my workplace at the moment, they're introducing, box breathing or combat breathing before before something happens, and but it's only for whilst they've introduced it quite some years ago. Who actually practices it, or very rarely do they practice it? We're seeing. During sports activities, rugby league, rugby union, once the thing that I'm seeing is that they all come into a huddle and you will see them actively do a number of breath, holds or exhales, etc., to reset, right? As you mentioned, just to down regulate and reset and let's go again. So yeah, I'm certainly a huge fan of it. But I interviewed another dog trainer actually in Canada, Duke Ferguson, and he was telling me that he's with another system. I think it's 9D breath work,
Okay.
and he does dog trainer certifications and courses, and he brings everyone together. And what he does during that course is introduce them to, some breath work during via the 9D breathwork system. And you know, business owners, we've all, at times we don't take care of ourselves. We're highly anxious. Where's the next paycheck going to come from? I'm juggling a million things at once, right? So teaching dog trainers the power of the breath work as well, right? So not just it applies right across the board from first responders to business owners to mum and dad, that's got five kids running around, and
It's a, it's
we're trying to get them ready for school.
everybody. Everybody can benefit.
Yeah.
Everybody. There's not one person that could not benefit
Hmm.
from nasal breathing, and there's a lot of people who say like I can't do that.
Hmm.
There are rugby players with broken noses, with deviated septums who have found a way to do it.
That's right.
So like
Uh,
there's no I can't. It's you may not be
yeah.
willing to try, but
Hmm.
it's it's not easy, I'll say at first.
Yeah.
It's a challenge and it's because your body, I'll say 60% of people are like dysfunctional breathers by nature.
Hmm.
That was one of the stats that Patrick McCown had kind of told us when we were going through our certification, and it's mouth breathers, all these other things, and there's so many benefits to it that I just encourage everybody to even just explore it, even just a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. The book that I really resonated with me was James Nestor's book.
Hmm.
I think that was my first introduction to, not just necessarily the science, but, he obviously experiments on himself, for in that book, clogs his nose up and mouth breathes and then vice versa. And then he goes into goes back to, goes back looking at bones and facial structures and things like that. It's a really interesting book and how we have changed over the generations of, not just breathing through our nose, but also what we eat and make our soft palates and then our snoring, our sleep apnea, like it's all contributed, right?
Yeah, there's you can go so deep into it. There's so much research and knowledge out there about it. James's book is great. Patrick's books are great.
Yep.
Yeah, there's just so many aspects to it that yeah, I mean we could talk about it for probably 2 hours, like you said.
Oh, 100%. I love it. I just wanted to finish off though, because when I've introduced or talked to people about breathwork, some of the first things they think of is number woo, the woo woo type stuff where they're, dancing around with no gear on, with crystals, with
Hmm.
sage and, drums and stuff like that. Not for everyone. I get it, right? And then on the other side, not everyone wants to walk up a mountain in their jocks in the snow in the Wim Hof type stuff.
Hmm.
So we've got these two extremes, right? That's how I see it. We've got these two total opposite ends. It's about finding something that sits well for you in the middle, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know there's a few other certifications that are about like conscious connected breathing and like really kind of delving more into the trauma therapy side of things.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of, like you said, variables, but I honestly believe that the oxygen advantage, in my personal opinion, after
Hmm.
the research and things that I've done, is the most accessible for the average everyday person if they
Hmm.
want to find a way to just improve their breathing and improve their endurance, stamina,
Hmm.
health, sleep, everything.
Yeah.
It's just such a simple and approachable program.
Yeah, no, yeah, no. Look, I agree, and I've got books. I haven't done a certification or a seminar for the Oxygen Advantage, but it's certainly on my 2026 list to sort of tick off. So, looking forward to that. So, probably just one thing that just popped in my head. I know I'm all over the place a little bit, but
Mhm.
when you're doing nasal breathing runs, so do you do it based on nasal breathing only, or do you include look at the heart rate? So, for instance, I've been running lately, nasal breathing. I've done 3 weeks. Just I've been running every day for 3 weeks, nasal breathing. But I've been also incorporated some maffetone stuff as well. So once my heart rate gets to 130, for instance, that's when I stop and I will, continue my nasal breathing until it drops, but no higher than 130 beats per minute, for instance. So building a
Mhm.
solid base. I haven't run for quite a number of months
Mhm.
and put on some additional kilos as well. So when you're looking at that. So is it around just how far nasal breathing only, or do you work in conjunction with your heart rate as well?
Yeah, I specifically make it
Mhm.
as simple as possible. Like it's just only run as fast as you can nasal breathe. If you're
Mhm.
starting to breathe out of your mouth, you slow down.
Okay.
Especially on those easy days. Like there's certain
Hmm.
days that are specifically nasal breathing runs. I'm
Hmm.
not meant to go above or below it.
Hmm.
I have experimented though with regards to obviously running ultras. You're doing a lot of elevation,
Hmm.
so I have experienced quite a bit in training and just trying it out of like dumping my CO2
Hmm.
before I reach a hill.
Okay.
So I'll do like multiple breaths out, breathe
Hmm.
in through the nose, but I'll just like dump all my CO2 out of my like when I'm breathing, I'll just go
Yeah.
dump it all out. And then as I'm going uphill, I find I can go longer because I've now increased my capacity for CO2 in my body because I've been
Hmm.
training it with the nasal breathing.
Hmm.
And if I dump all of it, it's no different than like these people that are like underwater and holding their breath for, 2, 3 minutes at a time.
Yep.
Like their ability to manage CO2 in their body is extremely high.
Hmm.
And that's really what it's about is like I dump it, and that means I can be more efficient on the hills, and I'm
Hmm.
not like huffing and puffing going up the hill because I've created that space and capacity for myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, really interesting. So, are you at the moment, are you training for anything in particular again at the moment?
I am currently on, I'll say, injured reserve. I attempted Tahoe 200 back in June, and
Right.
I rolled my ankle really badly 10 kilometers in.
Yep.
And I ran on it for another, I'll say 25, taped it up, ran on it for another 20 after that.
Yep.
And I ended up getting all the stuff when I got home and I tore a ligament in my ankle. So,
Oh.
as
Yep.
of right now, I had 12 weeks of pretty much no running.
Hmm.
Nova had Frisbee, but that was all she got.
Yep. Yep.
I had a couple friends run her every now and then, but yeah, so I don't have anything on the books right now. I'm
Yep.
sticking to strength training for the next number of months. I've just started running pain-free for the last 3 weeks now,
Yep.
which is beautiful. So I'm kind of slowly moving my mileage up a little bit,
Yep.
just in tandem with how the swelling and pain goes. But any these injuries with the torn ATFO, which is one of the smaller ligaments in your ankle, but it can take anywhere from 12 to 24 weeks. It really just depends on how bad you did it and
Yep. Yep.
other factors and everything else has to start to take over. So
Yep.
I got
Yeah.
to reteach all the leg muscles that ligament is no longer there.
The fun of rehabilitation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what?
Mhm.
It probably 5 years ago would have broke me.
Yeah.
And now I've just adjusted and gone, okay, what can I do right now? Not what
Mm.
can't I do?
Yep.
And I've just adjusted in that way.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. I just wanted to. You mentioned that in via email a little while ago that Supernova is showing. Well, is it still showing in Australia, or was it just a short?
Yeah, yeah. So it's part of the Top Dog Film Festival.
Yep,
I know they had dates end of August, and there was a few more throughout September and I think
mm,
October.
yep,
But yeah, Top Dog Film Festival took it on, and they have a bunch of other films. I think it's like a 2 hour
mm,
thing where they play a bunch of films all together. So yeah, that was
mm,
one of the first ones, and we just got another one that we were in Winter Park Film Festival, which is in Colorado in the
mm,
US.
yep,
And we just got accepted to a big one in the UK for November called Kendall Mountain Film Festival,
yep.
which kind of tours all over the UK. And I guess there's some satellite ones in the US as well too. So
Yeah,
yeah, we're excited to share it with more people. And that's really the whole goal is to just share it with as many people as we can.
yeah, awesome. And like I said, if you haven't watched it, for the listeners out there, I will link to the YouTube version. But certainly, if you want to get along to one of the exhibitions or one of the shows, it'd be just. I think it'd just be another level up. Yeah, you can watch it at home on YouTube or on your PC, but certainly, the Top Dog Film Festival, etc., surrounded by lots of other people, and really enjoying it. So I'll have a look at the dates as well, and if I can post them in the show notes, I'll. For Australia, but in saying that, I've got listeners right throughout the world. So if you're out there, certainly have a look at those dates.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. And I know there's one thing that I wanted to touch on because I
mm,
think it's big in the training aspect of things. People
yeah,
have always asked me, there's no actual documentation of anybody ever attempting something like I did for 100 miles with the dog. So
okay.
we had nothing to go off of.
Yep.
And somebody had reached out to me and they're like, well, who are you going to talk to? And the first thing that popped in my head was, well, what do like dog sled teams do?
Hmm.
Because they're going probably the furthest that they're pushing their dogs. So I actually have a really close group of friends here, the Dalk brothers, and their dad actually owns a dog sledding company here in Canada.
Nice.
So I was able to get connected with him, and I had such an incredible conversation with Roger,
Hmm.
just talking about how he manages his dogs, and a little bit different because I'm not running Nova at that speed all the time.
Yep.
But little things that you may not know or listeners might appreciate when you're kind of getting even into Canicross and these things when it comes to recovery.
Hmm.
So for every hour of work, it was equal number of hours of rest.
Hmm.
So it was, 8 hours of running with the dog sled. Those
Yep.
dogs got 8 hours of sleep. There
Yep.
was no question about it. That was how he managed it. Everything from like mushers wax on your dog's paws to like just little things that you would never think about if you wouldn't have those conversations. So if anybody is even thinking like, hey, I want to
Yep.
I want to go further with my dog, like do a
Hmm.
little bit of research on what these dog sled teams do because that's where I also figured out, don't feed Nova her full meal. Feed
Hmm.
her like a quarter of it throughout the race at different aid stations. And, she doesn't necessarily need food while she's running.
Hmm.
She can have a couple snacks and a little bit of water, but dogs are meant to not really have it while they're actually in activity.
Hmm.
So it's like, trying to figure out that. So we didn't really go full on with, 1 hour of rest, 1 hour of running, just
Yep.
because we were at a lower intensity.
Hmm.
But I think people can learn a lot from those dog sled teams.
Yeah, for sure. And have you, since on that, have you created a bit of a buzz around, people wanting to give this a try, in the future? Has anyone sort of reached out to you or people reached out and go, hey, that was really awesome. I love what you're doing. Would you love to get a group of us together and try and achieve this?
Yeah, I've had a lot of people ask what races will accept dogs, thinking
Hmm.
that I know all of them. I don't, unfortunately. It definitely makes me want to create a database of it for
Hmm.
people just so they know what they can access and what they can't.
Yep.
I know quite a few now, especially in my area. I've had a lot of people reach out because of the film, just saying like us too. And I've got to meet like Canicross dog teams and people who are running these ultra distances, like from
Hmm.
like Brazil to the Philippines to like this film has been seen literally worldwide with the partnerships that I had with Sunto Nonstop Dogwear and CLA Athletics, which is the Canadian apparel company. So like it's literally gone worldwide. It's
Hmm.
incredible to hear the feedback from people and the number of people reaching out, asking, like you said, those little things about how can I do this? Can you help me?
Yep.
So yeah, it's definitely created a buzz. I mean, I don't think I'm ready to create a course on how to run an ultra with your dog yet, but
You certainly
yeah.
coach, you can coach them one on one.
Absolutely. I can coach. And the funny thing is all of my athletes that I've had so far, other than one, has a dog.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's, I think, a unique thing because there's so many people that are running with their dogs that, a typical coach may not have the knowledge that I might have in order to bring your dog along with you.
Hmm.
So it's maybe a unique little niche for me that maybe I'm not capitalizing on quite yet.
Yeah, for sure. And just on that though, there's a huge difference between a 5K or even a 2K Canny Cross, compared to what you're doing. Yes, I agree that we have to start somewhere. Yeah,
Hmm.
but typically, we will see, and I will see it as well. We will with my GSP at our, we'll run 3 minute 30, 3 minute 15. Kilometers, Candy Cross, and
Hmm.
I'm sprinting my ass off.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
but that's not sustainable over the distance that you're talking, and not all dogs will be capable of that either, right?
Yeah, it's and I did say that it's going to be one and done for that distance with Nova when you're asking about, can we get some people together to do this? And
Yeah, yep.
she's 8 now. I want to, do I think she's capable of it?
Hmm.
Absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind that she is.
Hmm.
Am I willing to put her health, she's 8. You
Hmm.
kind of start thinking, what point is she going to slow down? Do I think we can do a little bit less than that distance in some races?
Hmm.
Absolutely. She's proven that time and time again for me.
Yep.
But the 100-mile distance was a one and done attempt.
Yeah, 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 for sure. And, like I'm a huge advocate for people, getting out there and exercising with their dogs. I've seen over the years, I've seen companies pop up like a boot camp type thing where they meet up every morning and they do, forms of exercises, including obedience. There was last time I seen there was a company in America franchising that stuff. I don't know.
Hmm.
I don't know how successful it was or is, but certainly in the states that have the better weather, having a dog boot camp, where you do push-ups, lunges while your dog does some obedience, and was certainly appealing to a lot of people. But whether it's running, getting out and doing that type of stuff, I'm a huge advocate for both physical and mental stimulation, not just for us, for our dogs. And when we include our dogs, as you mentioned, people just light up, right? So it has a ripple effect, which I
Yeah.
love.
Yeah, and I mean Nova sees it as her job.
Yeah.
Like that's her, she's technically a bird hunting dog.
Hmm.
So like for her this is like work in a sense, and that's how I treat it like when we're out together. Yes, we're
Hmm.
having fun and we're enjoying ourselves, but
Yeah.
she sees this as like her, her purpose. And I think that's a cool way to look at it, is just know that it's, not putting her through anything that she may not want to do. There's lots
Yeah.
of times that we've been running and we've gotten back to the car and I'm like, we're going for another loop. And she's like, no, we are not. And she's just like jumping in the car. So it's like she definitely knows how to say no
Mhm.
when she wants to.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. So I think we've had a great chat. We've touched on a number of subjects. Is there anything else you'd like to mention before we sort of wrap it up for the listeners?
Yeah, I can't, we touched on all those other pieces. Again, with the training nutrition, I think
Mm-hmm.
Canicross as a sport itself, I
Yep.
think it's huge in Europe. Like Europe is like, again, no different than anything. They're 10 years ahead of us.
Yep.
It's starting to kind of get a little bit more popular in Canada,
Mm-hmm.
just on the East Coast, not as much in my area as well too. So I think there's a lot of room for growth in that area. And I think, like you said, it's not necessarily about the distance or speed or anything. It's literally just about the spending time out on the trails together and or the road, or whatever it may be. And I think that's the unique part about that sport in itself. Like you get to take your best friend with you like
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah.
And there's no bond like it. You can walk your dog, you can play with your dog, you can do all these things, but I don't know, running with your dog just hits so different because it's like it's so natural to them. And I think it's natural to us. And I think it's, it's a matter of like getting back to like just enjoying it and not putting any pressure on it.
Yeah, for sure. So, look, I agree, and I've really enjoyed this conversation. So, Evan, if people have liked what we've talked about today, and they're interested in reaching out, obviously, I've mentioned a number of times now. I'm going to link to the documentary. But how can they go about following you or reaching out for further help or coaching?
Yeah, absolutely. So just at Ultra Birch on Instagram.
Hmm?
My website is ultrabirch.com. Uh, YouTube channel is Ultra Birch. Just make it nice and easy for everybody just to connect that way. And yeah, anything from coaching to dog advice. I am one of those types of people that am happy to, share my knowledge in a, very big way. It's not doesn't necessarily have to be paid knowledge. I think, I got given this by other people or I've learned it myself. And I think there's an opportunity to share it a little bit more widely whenever I can.
Yeah, awesome. All right. So if you like this conversation with Evan, guys, I appreciate it. Please give us a like, a subscribe, a share. Once again, Evan, thank you very much for taking the time to have a really good conversation. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for your time, Daniel.